Welcome to another edition off the cast. We haven't done one of these in a hot minute, one of these little podcast style casts. Funny enough, I saw someone say, "Hey, we need more Breacher style podcast stuff." And I love the idea, but sometimes the hardest part is just content, right? Anyways, I think today we've got some very interesting updates, hot off the press. I mean, they came out literally, was it this morning or last night? I got to double check the time, but they're ranging from map updates to some pretty sizable, I think, balancing updates. But we'll cover them all in just a second. Before we get to that, let me introduce my fellow co-hosts tonight. I have, of course, the Gibbler Bob and the Yellow Hat, if you've seen him around. I know you've done a couple Breachers style casts, but you're more a Vale caster,
more
technically,
Vale, more
or both.
Love,
Right. So he's been around the Breacher scene. You might have recognized him, But yes, and of course we have Royal Chef on the cams, managing the stream as usual. Always got to appreciate, our own mini production crew, I guess we can call it. But anyways, unless anyone has any last things to mention, let's kind of hop into what do these changes look like.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's take a look at the very first big thing that came out at 5 a.m. this morning over in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, the best time zone, by the way. We got a big announcement here from Wesley. Get ready for Mall Charms, Challenges, Prestige, and more.
Yeah, let's head over to that screen share, check it over.
Yeah, so this was the big announcement here. So we got a couple of big points. The big one on the bottom that we're going to spend most of our time discussing here is the balancing overhaul. But really quick, just a couple of crazy little additions here. The new map Mall. Some of you might have played on it today. I know I did, and it is a lot of fun. We also have gun charms, which is, as it says, a new way to decorate your weaponry. Basically, you can add charms to your gun. We'll talk a little bit about those, and I don't know if everybody else knows this, but they have sound effects with them too.
So, oh, really? I thought it'd be like purely cosmetic. I didn't realize there'd be other stuff to it.
There's sound effects with them as well. On top of that, we also have weapon challenges, a great way to earn XP for yourself and also unlock some special charms themed around each gun. We have prestige, which is a big thing if you've hit the max level. I know there are quite a few players, particularly if you're a League VRML player. You've probably been at that max level for quite some time. Well, now you can prestige and keep going and going and going and going and earn all of the levels and rewards that you did before, and you can now just farm those infinitely. And finally, the big one is that balancing overhaul. This is, again, what we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. It has a lot of changes, and really, I think the meta for Breachers and the way that the game is played competitively is going to change completely.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how the season will develop. I mean, for us, it's interesting, right? We're at the almost end of the season. We're going to go into playoffs. So we'll actually see how these impacts happen in playoffs, which is probably, I think the scariest place to see it have happen, right? You don't want to be going into playoffs, having practiced such a specific way throughout the whole league season, and then now things have kind of technically just been shaken up for you for playoffs. I'm not sure if maybe Triangle Factory is trying to, do something like that, because they do work with VRML. They know generally what's going on in terms of what we're doing. But anyways, let's scroll down. Let's start checking out some of these balance changes if you can. The Chef. I want to do some quick, I think, big balance updates that I noticed, some like very big high level stuff. I call it, I think, it's like balancing changes there. Thank you, Chef. I think I would call this season, honestly, maybe it's the rebalance season. Maybe it's the shakeup season. Because think about this season, we have had 2 map reworks, a throwing mechanic rework, and now pretty sizable, reworks in terms of economy and some of these guns. And so some of them, there's some pretty big overarching changes to reload
really
time.
Quick, not to interrupt you here, but there is one big change I want to get into before the balancing changes. If you scroll up a little bit, Chef, there, under the competitive section. Where is it? There it is. So really quick, every Revolter site can now only be used twice per half. So it makes sure, and the game now makes sure that you play on every floor before it rotates back around again. So you're gonna get 2 upstairs, you're gonna get 2 middle floor, and you're gonna get 2 downstairs site every single half. It's not completely random like it was before, so you can't get, never the top floor, which is an issue in competitive because there are some matches where there's a site that is weaker depending on the for the side, and that just never spawned in. So I think this is a welcome change because it's going to make the attacking and defending half
Yeah.
a lot more balanced, and I'm excited to see that change.
I'm interested because I I like the pure randomness because you technically don't know what floor you're gonna get, but I didn't like the
Right.
fact that sometimes you would never get a floor, and I've definitely seen that in the first half. But this changes will be interesting because it makes sure that you do try every single floor. But there's also the fact that except for skyscraper, there's like what 4 different sites there, so it's a little bit different for that one. But it makes it interesting because if you hit to if you go to 5 or 6 rounds, you can almost predict at that point which 2 floors you haven't played twice over. So you're almost able to predict at this point which floor is going to be coming up. I'm not sure if that's going to provide any advantage, if anyone's even going to think about it. But just throwing that out there, technically you can start predicting the next site now because it's no longer purely random. Yeah. Anyways, let's hop into any other big changes y'all noticed, or Yellow Hat. I don't know if you had any interesting thoughts on one of those changes before.
That's what I was gonna ask was, is it like gonna still be like sequential, or is it, it'll still be random, but it'll make sure that you don't pick a certain floor?
So it's still randomized. So like let's say you're
Okay.
on Hideout and you get the bottom floor of Hideout. It's still random whether or not you're going to get the middle floor or the top floor, but you can only get the middle floor or the top floor a total of 2 times per half. So if you've already played on the downstairs site, bar and gym, and you've already played both times on the middle floor, then that means that, to Martini's point, you would be able to prepare for a top floor push because that would be, by process of elimination, the only floor that you could theoretically play on for like that final round.
I think that's my guess. Like it's probably if you hit two site like that would site twice in like not twice in a row, but twice in general, it's probably done. Right. That's probably my guess on the logic. So I don't think there's like I was hoping more for like a waiting thing where like, oh, if you notice that one site has been played a lot, you're less likely to get it, but you still could technically get it. So you still get that pure randomness. But maybe it adjusts it depending on how often it's played. But I guess this is definitely an easier way, I think, to implement that logic. So I'm not shocked it did it this way. But again, it introduces the fact that you can start predicting, which maybe because I can see a team doing this where they're like, hey, we're really bad on this side. We know the next side's going to be this. Honestly, let's not go all in on this round. Let's go all in on the next round. And that's the only thing I can see happening. But again, that's just another strategic thing to worry about in terms of breachers, which I think does make it more interesting.
Yeah, and I know some people, sorry to interrupt you, have preferred that it moves to a similar system as like Rainbow Six Siege, where the defenders can choose what site they're on, and if they win that round, they're locked out of that site. So people avoid a similar system where if you're like the Revolter side and you win on bar and gym, that bottom floor on Hideout, you could theoretically, that would be locked out and you would have to win a round on middle floor and top floor before everything unlocks again.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like that it, yes, there's still randomness, but it kind of takes out some of that randomness of like, you don't get screwed over by getting like, the first floor of something over and over and over and over again. So
I've seen it time and time again. It almost feels unbelievable. It almost feels unbelievable. But if you think about it, it is a 1 in 3 chance. Like that's not that low. Like to get the same exact site. Sometimes not twice in a row because I think it couldn't do that. But there were times where like I swear to God it would be that side, rotate to another random one, back to that side, rotate another one, back to that side again, and I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, I'm almost tired of casting this specific floor. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But yeah. Anyways, any other things y'all want to talk about? Otherwise, I think the balance changes are going to be definitely the more interesting ones.
Yeah,
If you all,
two things really quick. I keep stalling, but yeah. So just two quick fun notes to make note of is we have the festive main lobby
oh yeah,
now.
yep.
You can find that it's been decorated to fit the Christmas theme. It's not raining anymore, which is pretty interesting. It feels like almost
What?
out of
Ooh,
place.
I gotta hop
It's
on.
snowing instead, and so it's not making that loud rain sound effects. So that was it's weird. It feels like something is missing when you load in. But and there's like presents around and holiday lights up. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We didn't get something like this last year, so it's nice to see a little
Right.
Christmas edition there. But also a quick shout out to Triangle Factory since they put this whole update together. They also added some new bot names, which you might see in game. Alex, Cam, Lauren, Mike, Not Chai, and Ray as bot names. So I've come across a couple of
Huh.
them today. But you might as well. So just fun little trivia there. Some brand new bot names that you might come across when you're either playing in League and one of your teammates disconnects, or if you're just in a regular pub.
I wonder if it's like new team members they might have picked on or something like that,
Oh
or
yeah,
if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
Every bot is named after a developer.
okay.
So
That's what I
there's
thought.
one, yeah, there's one, named after like Wesley or Tom. And so as
I
Triangle
think it's
Factory has picked
so.
up some more employees, they've also added their bots to the
I
game
love
as well.
that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun it's a fun thing to do, especially for, just include the developers in the game a little more.
All right, awesome. Let's scroll down, Chef. Let's check out some of these big balance change updates. Just wanted to do some overarching changes before we kind of get into the nitty gritty because there's a lot. There's definitely a lot of different things. Some of the bigger things I'd noticed, there's some pretty big changes to reload time. I think I kind of went through a lot of them quickly. Some of them almost doubled in terms of reload time, and I think I'd seen someone talk about it already, which is a big deal, right? In terms of we're going to be doing a lot of close counters. So we'll talk about that in a second. I'm kind of curious about everyone's thoughts, but just some of the bigger stuff. So SMG and shotguns now provide double economy now per kill. So instead of 150 per kill, you now get 300 cash from those. There's been an increased hit slowdown effect on heavier weapons like the Taurus, shotguns, Cadillo, and the Marui. Some pretty big cost changes, I would say. All SMGs are cheaper. Cadillo and Aro are also cheaper. However, one of the only negative economy changes in this update were the Vezin and Marui now going to be costing, I think it's 3,200 credits, which is going to be a pretty big change there. And then some of the cooler, I think, utility changes that might get lost because of these gun changes. But the frag grenade fuse timer decreased from 3 seconds to 2.5 seconds. I think that'll definitely, kind of lead to more grenade kills. And the cloak. I know there's been a lot of comments on the cloak, but it actually has reduced transparency now, of cloaked players. So anyways, there's a lot of big changes there, not too many nitty gritty stuff, but I'm kind of curious just from initial thoughts, Bob and Yellow Hat, are there any standout changes that you had seen in these balance changes that you can see either impacting the meta, changing, the cadence of the game, changing how players, go forward in choosing guns? Because it looks like this balance update includes a lot of gun related stuff.
I got
It's
one,
interesting.
Yellow Hat. You got one?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
it's funny because I remember talking with y'all at
Yep.
VRMLCon just about like this exact thing. I'm like, it'd be really cool like if SMGs and shotguns and all that had like more kill bonus so that, players are more inclined to use them on like round 2 for like anti-eco, which is, when you win pistol round and have more money and more economy, you're shutting down the eco round that they're doing. So I'm glad that this was a change that was actually considered and implemented. And, I'm excited to see like a little bit more weapon diversity because to my knowledge, this game hasn't added like any new weapons. It's just been
Mm.
kind of the same roster of weapons over time. But I'm glad that, now they're trying to go for a little bit more weapon diversity, which is really great to see.
Yeah, before we get into that, I'll share my thoughts on that in just a moment. I want to get the two pieces of utility out of the way because those are, not going to be as related to the discussion, but the grenade timer decreasing by half a second is significant. I know people might not think it is, but it is. It's going to be easier to get frag grenade kills again because you have less time to react to a well thrown frag. It's not going to be like a guaranteed kill, but if you have a good lineup and you make a good throw, that's going to get you the kill a lot more often now. And the cloaking device, reduced transparency of cloaked players is a big ask that has been in VRML for quite some time. I don't know if you guys have seen the screenshots, but a couple of players. The first one that comes to mind is LFT from Formula 3, made a little game which was spot the cloaked player in this image, and he would show you like
Really? Is it that bad?
Yeah, he would show you like skyscraper, and it's just like an image of lower lounge, and there would be like nothing there. It's like playing Where's Waldo, but they just didn't add Waldo in, and you can never find him. Some of the opacity was so low when you're crouched and you're not moving at all with the cloak. It's almost impossible to see them. And even if you can spot somebody, you have to look close enough. And in Breachers, which is a game where having like a reaction time that's slower by, just less than a second can get you killed, it was really creating a problem in a competitive environment because it would just made some players too hard to see. So seeing reduced transparency on that is a big change. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the price increase of rifles, but Overtime got $300 more in it, so it's compensated for the increased rifle prices. But yeah, to your point, Yellow Hat, we did talk about this at VRMLCon, and I love to see the changes here to the SMGs because here's the thing. We have been in the same meta for Breachers since the game released. Well, almost the entire time. Yeah. There have been a few exceptions. When the game first released, the Omen was competing with the Vezint, which was the greatest thing to ever happen. That was great. But they did nerf the Omen, and I guess rightly so because it should not have been putting in the same firepower as the Vezint. The Cyclone was really powerful. Thank you, Chef, for reminding me. That had its own era, and then that eventually got nerfed. The Jesper was actually a very useful weapon at one point, and it was somebody's. It was some players' preferred pick for eco rounds because it was still doing a 2-tap headshot, meaning that you could net a kill pretty easily for those 2 headshots from the Jesper. And
honestly, I want to chime in on that. I remember that. I used to be a Jesper main, like in terms of pistol round. Yeah, because I remember the most defining comment that I could recall wasn't even me that said it, was someone else I was playing online with. They're like, look, at this point with a 2-shot headshot, a Spectral is just a Jesper with a $500 silencer.
Right.
And I was just like, damn, like that was such a wild statement to hear, but it's not wrong. Because when you're thinking about these guns at the competitive level, because I'll say like when it's just pub level, like not everyone's gonna be hitting fucking headshots left and right. But I say that, but also you go to rank mode, and honestly, there's some crazy ass people in rank that don't even play in the league, right? So people are getting good enough now where like headshots are pretty standard, or at least like pretty close to being the standard that. Getting a 2-shot headshot on 2, guns with a 500 credit difference for the first round, which could theoretically, allow you to get a hero buy potentially in the upcoming round or get some really nice buys. That's a big deal, right? And I think that Jesper 20% kind of, I think, overall damage decrease was totally worth it. Because, I mean, you're basically paying $500 to get a normal pistol or get like the most eco option possible, but now there's like an actual downside to it. And even then, some people still utilize, Jespers even at the high level because of the economy saving. So to have a gun that performs just as well and provides such strong economic advantage, it definitely needed to see those impacts. So it's great to see. I think that's how they're trying to. It looks like that's how they're trying to handle this gun disparity thing by handling it through economy choices, which I find it more interesting because it's better than just full on nerfing guns to the ground. Because I think that's a problem some developers might face where you nerf a gun too hard to the ground. It's just no longer enjoyable to use.
Right.
There's still, I'm not gonna lie, there's still some nerfs. In this update, you've seen a lot of damage fall off, being a very big thing here. So I'm kind of curious to see if that works out. Shotguns technically got a buff. I mean, check out they have
Right.
more hit slowdown. The damage fall off range is actually higher now. And they also have like eco changes. So I think they're trying to make shotguns more in line with being used. We saw SMGs, already kind of getting some usage in the last like season or two. So I think this is just allowing it to be more used. And I think for me, the biggest standout balance changes are definitely these eco ones. Whether it's the extra cash. So I definitely see the SMG round being a thing now. We used to have the assault rifle round, we used to have pistol round. I can see round 2 being regularly like an SMG round, right? I was doing the math really quick, and like it's possible for the winning team to get the do a full buy SMG and then potentially still scrape together, a buy for the Vezin in that third round. But I will say the losing team, if they don't do their economy correctly, it's totally within the realm that they don't get that third round Vezin. So it might make more sense for the losing team to actually get SMGs, get that anti-eco cost, get that 300 in your pocket every time per kill. I can see some SMG rounds being very normal. Shotguns, I still think they're very niche. I don't know. I'm still hesitant to say anything about shotguns, but SMGs I think are gonna make. They're not gonna. I'm not gonna say like, oh, SMG over Vezins. That's never gonna fucking happen, guy. Like they're 3,200. They're one shot headshot kill. But the idea is just to make them viable, to make them used from the round to round, use them more viable, and that's kind of the intent because the SMG is this mid round area. I think what ends up being weird is honestly the Cadillo and Oro, right? They technically got buffed. They're cheaper now. They have the Cadillo has more increased hit slowdown. I'm kind of curious to see how those fit in now because if I can get an Omen. If I can get 2 omens for the cost of 1 Cadillo, is it worth it? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing to look at.
That's something that I always found with shotguns too. If we can actually scroll down to shotguns, is a resident Canutt enjoyer. So
The
the
nut
thing
enjoy.
is, see, the thing is, like, even then, like, it's the shotguns isn't worth buying because they're still like what 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's Cadillo price, and for Canutt versus Cadillo, you get way more range. You still get a one tap potential, whereas the Canutt, it's like, okay, cool. Like maybe I get one tap potential, up to like 5-10 meters or whatnot. But what I like is, when you're thinking like 2 to 4, and this is where the yapping is going to start. So 2 meters, like okay, the damage is here, and then when it went down to 4 meters, it's like boom, sharp drop off.
Yep.
And so in that 2 to 4 meter range, you had so much inconsistency, and that is kind of a thing, like an issue, because it's like, it- like that could be the difference of like you holding your controllers here and then you holding your controllers here. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
true.
that
That's true.
half a meter could make all the difference in the gun's consistency. Whereas now it's a steadier drop off. So that's not going to matter as much. So even at like 3, 4, 5 meters, which is, that could be like, across a table or something, or however much 5 meters is away, but that's going to result in the Canutt being way, way more consistent, which is nice. And you're going to see people kind of maybe huddling up in corners, or like, say, like second floor hideout in the connector or whatever, like, something like that. Or, I'm trying to think of other examples, even like, even playing like some of the connector spots, that's something where the Canutt maybe could even shine a little bit. And then of course, you're getting $300 a kill, so now it's not completely useless and a meme buy.
Yes. So, and not to mention the increased hit slow, right? So
That's gonna be crazy.
you now have a little more assistance when getting a kill. Like if you're using an Uricon and you hit like at least a couple of those pellets on your target, I would say you now have far more likelihood of being able to secure that kill based on that new hit slow. And I have to agree completely with Yellow Hat's points on the Canutt there. I called it the 50-50 gun because it really when you got to like a certain distance, it really felt like there was a 50% chance you would kill with it and a 50% chance you wouldn't kill with it. And I think on that note, the Uricon before this update was far more consistent at killing at close ranges than the Canut was. And we've seen the use of the Uricon from players like Luna recently.
I love seeing those league matches because I've casted
Right.
Luna several times, and I remember like, who the heck does this person think they are pulling out a full on Uricon mid league match
Right.
against not pubs, not gold, not even like diamond, but like full on master tier
Mhm.
players. And hold up, they're getting kills with
Right.
this. Like it was definitely insane.
Yeah, I've definitely seen I've only ever seen one player. This was a very long time ago, back when I was a BCL caster. I think they were on Rebel. I could be wrong. But they were very, very good with the Uricon, and they were securing kills. But no, yeah, I mean, so all in all, I think the changes to the shotguns are very welcome, and I like to see that they are also given that increased cash on a kill, because I think now it may come down to a preference of, do you like SMGs more or do you like shotguns more? And, whichever one that you can get more kills with might be that better option for earning yourself some extra money. But in terms of the economy changes as a whole, and just heading back to the Jesper for just a moment, a lot of people were upset when the Jesper was originally nerfed to do less damage, because it was comfortable to use and it was free. So it was like one of the best options. And it didn't really give you a whole lot of reason to use that Spectral. And people might be upset by the increased price of the Vezin and the Marie. But here's the thing. There was not a reason to use most of the other weapons in this game. The Kadia was useless. The RO was completely useless. The SMGs like RCP, nobody used that. Viper and Omen started to find more footing in the meta before this. But you had all of these weapons, and even shotguns found themselves in this category as well. There are a few distinct players who used shotguns on a consistent basis and really kind of made a name for themselves, because it was kind of an oddity to see that in master tier gameplay. But everybody got so comfortable with going from the pistol round immediately to the Vezin that it really created this meta of like, okay, we're just going right to rifles, and then we lose a round, we're going back to pistols. And that really, I think, kind of stagnated the meta. That made people get bored of breachers. And so when I see people complaining about the price increase, I just think, give it a shot, because this is opening the door to make breachers a lot more interesting competitively. Because, and Yellow Hat, you have more background knowledge of CSGO esports than I do, but there's, that whole anti-eco discussion that has opened up. Really, I mean, it adds depth to the game, because now you need to know a lot more about the way the money system works in order to make the best decisions each round.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've been on such a CS kick these past couple of weeks. But yeah, no, I mean, like, so before you were mentioning it, and that's especially from like an outsider's perspective too. I mean, that's all Breachers kind of was for a while, was
Right.
Spectral Vezin, and that was it. There was no reason to use literally anything else. And then now it's like, okay, now on second round, if you win piss around, maybe you can have one or two people with SMGs to just clear up, and then they're the ones who are buying all the util for the round after, or something like that. And yeah, the 3,200 for Vezin and the Marui, like that might be a little bit harder to work your way up to. And so you might see some more save rounds, or more Jesper rounds, than trying to see if people can use that. But I mean, I think you know when we were talking about the Jester, like I was like, man, I remember that because I was like, I always used to use Jester, and even when it got nerfed, it was like I still liked using Jester because I know I could buy util for my team on pistol.
Right.
And before the nerf, it was like, why would anybody ever use the Spectral when the Jesper exists and it does the same exact damage, both headshot and body shot. And then even then, that's when the Cyclone was just God. So, everybody was like kind of on the Cyclone anyways. So
Yeah, I think see that's the thing. Like so many people, I think they get so caught up on like these big changes, and it's like especially impacting guns that people love. I hate to say like everyone just people have a hard on for the Vezin. I'm gonna be quite fucking honest. People have a fucking hard on. I swear to God for the Vezin, and I'm a guy that prefers maybe because we're casting and maybe it's just more interesting to be quite honest, but. I'm a guy that would rather have more variety, in terms of guns. And I've always said that's why I sometimes don't even think the Marui could ever truly compete with the Vezin. And I said a hot take, in one of the random servers. It was like maybe the Marui shouldn't be the direct competitor to a Vezin. Maybe it should be like 1 or 200 credits cheaper or something. Because it's so hard to balance when the Vezin is just so dominant, and I'm happy that they're handling this through economy changes, right? They could have, because think about this, they could have handled this like leaving the economy exactly as it is, but nerfing it, or buffing other guns a lot more. But the problem is, I think in terms of might come up where like some things are overtuned, which is what we saw like with the Cyclone, in the early days. We saw it with the Omen in the early days, right? And I think what Triangle Factory is trying to do is find this really good green zone of not that every gun is viable all the time, but that in very specific scenarios, it might honestly make more sense to maybe pick up an Omen, right? Maybe round 2, you pick up an Omen instead of just going for that Spectral buy again. Because the thing is, if you do that every single time, it gets kind of boring. Because to Bob's point, the rounds become very rinse and repeat. But if you can have situations come up and you're able to actually make choices like properly make real like smart choices and not just I'm being dumb this round, I'm gonna get like the craziest fucking SMG, like go all in on an RCP even though maybe I shouldn't, but maybe if it's more like I can get an Omen for 1,000 and risk going all in and still being able to buy a Vezin in the upcoming round. Those are really strong economy choices. Those are strategic choices, which I think make the game more interesting than just a flat nerf on the Vezin and maybe making the Marui like nerfed also because of where it's at. I find it very interesting, and I'd rather them work towards that where they can have more variety, because now I can see it being round 1 pistol SMG round, and then win or lose going into third round maybe it's assault rifle round, but then there's a lot of variety after that. Versus before it's like round 1 pistol, round 2 you're probably still doing pistol and then maybe a hero buy, right? That was pretty damn standard. And then that basically almost guarantees you a win because someone with the Vezin is just going to be popping everyone's heads. If they have 2 Vezins, like even more dangerous, right? And then now you're on to assault rifle round, right? Like it was always that exact kind of pattern. And then after that, it depended on who won assault rifle round. Like really, I think what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, doing the math really quickly, I can see like upsets happening more often. Because that's something we had seen too in the league matches. Like even if a team won on an eco round, and that's such a big deal, the other team had such a large amount of cash stacked up that they were able to easily buy up everyone, Vezins again. So like even though a team won, that win wasn't as felt. And with the 3,200 being the cost of the Vezin. One thing to also note, it's going to impact team buys. I don't think I'm surprised I haven't seen anyone mention team buys, because now you can't just, buy everyone on your, like you and a random teammate on your team a Vezin, because it's going to cost too much. Like you can be lucky enough to get your own Vezin, for 1 or 2 rounds and then maybe be alive to maintain it. But team buys are going to be a big deal now, because now you can no longer just buy, across the board, which is going to be, I think, another sizable change in how teams approach rounds.
So
Really
speaking
quick,
of Vezin-
before I interrupt you again,
No,
I
you're
just
good.
want to talk about, and Martini had touched on this a little bit, but I think this whole update makes the game a lot more dynamic in terms of the choices that you make.
Yep.
And Martini, you talked about this, but we saw it with the rifles, like between the Marui and the Vezin. There were some changes to damage and fall off. The Vezin in particular had its fall off range decreased from 15 to 30 meters to 10 to 20 meters. it did have its damage also decreased from
The body
26 on
damage. Yep.
headshot and 21 on body to 25 on headshot and 20 on body. So you're still going to get the one shot headshot. However, the range now becomes a more significant factor. If you're at a closer to kind of medium range, your Vezin is still going to be the most effective weapon because it does have that faster fire rate. But if you are on a sight combination that values range more, the Marui is now finding its place because its range has not been affected at all. Its damage is still very high. It still does great damage and has a better fall off than the Vezin. So you're now going to get into some scenarios where you ask yourself, which rifle is better to buy? Is it going to be that Vezin or that Marui? And I like that. I like that there's now going to be more of a choice, and that's going to matter a little bit more in the end. The other thing that you're talking about was with the SMGs and how I think we're going to see a lot more risk buys in this new meta, particularly with something like the Cadillo or the RL. And here's why. I mean, when you get into that, let's say you win the pistol round, you now have enough money to buy an SMG, but so does your opponent. Your opponent can now buy SMGs as well. So what we saw before in the previous meta was Vezins being used to, kind of crush the opposition. You would have the team that lost the pistol round would be stuck with pistols. The team that won the pistol round would have 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 Vezins coming off of that first round win, which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
But now both teams are going to have enough money to purchase those SMGs. So if you're the team that wins the pistol round, you might be interested in a risk buy where you pick up either a Cadillo or an RL and try and risk getting some kills with those and keeping that further into that half of your map. You pick up a Cadillo round 2 and you carry that through round 3, round 4, and if you eventually go down, you may have gotten enough value out of that Cadillo to really help out your team take care of some of the SMGs that your opponent might have been buying. So I like to see that there is now more risk involved with the choices that you're making. Obviously, before it was a risk to buy a bunch of Vezins off of a pistol round win because you could drop one of those. But now I think we're seeing more risk when it comes to that initial buy. You could invest in a more powerful rifle to get ahead of the SMGs. You could invest in a pistol to save more money, but still have to worry about players using those faster fire rate SMGs. Or you could invest in that SMG, which is going to give you that kill bonus. But in the end, if you lose with that SMG and you've invested, you might not be able to buy a rifle next round.
So I was actually going to get into the Vezin specifically, everybody's favorite, because this is the part where I really start getting nerdy and start doing a little bit of math. So something that I think is really important to note, right? So damage fall off range decreased from 15 to 30 to 10 to 20 meters. And then on top of that, decreased damage from 26 to 21 to 25 to 20. Now, what that means is that, so it's doing 26, 26, 26, and then you hit 15 meters, and then it starts dipping down. So now it's going to do 25, 25, 25, and then dip a little bit earlier. And as soon as it dips under 25, now the Vezin is a 5-hit body shot as opposed to 4, right? Because 25 times 4, 100. Everybody has 100 health. So now it's becoming a 5-shot kill at likely just past 10 meters, whereas it might have been a 4-hit kill out to like 17 or 18 meters and then fell down below that 25. So now, right, what the math behind it, of course, if you're thinking about the time to kill, and actually I made a chart a long time ago when I was, interested in doing Breacher's weapon stats. So the Vezin shoots at 660 rounds a minute, right? So you take 60 divides by 660, and that's how long it takes to get one bullet out, which in this case is, 90 milliseconds or whatnot, right? 0.09. So then now, because it's a 5-hit kill, that time to kill is 0.36 seconds, whereas the Marui, still at that 4-hit kill range, is now 0.3 seconds. So the Marui now, as soon as past 10 meters, is technically a faster, body shot time to kill than the Vezin at that point. So especially like the one example that I'm thinking, or two examples I'm thinking of. One, holding skyscraper hallways, or
Mhm.
two, holding third floor window hideout all the way to connector, right?
Yeah.
Somebody could use the Marui there and have a little bit more success than somebody using the Vezin, because again, they might still be at that 4-shot range, whereas the Vezin is at 5 shots. Now, the Vezin's not going to fall below 5 shots because that minimum damage is 20. If that were to be 19, then yeah, you'd be looking at a 6-shot Vezin. But the thing is, the Vezin has always been king because it has that faster fire rate. So, when you're up close, it has that one-shot headshot capability. So it has the faster follow-up time because it's got that faster, fire rate. So that's why it's always been preferred over the Marui there. But now it's like, if you're a longer range player, which, like, Breachers, there's some examples of that, where the Marui may actually be a little bit better. And to top that off too, now the Marui has increased hit slow. So like, you get tagged by a Marui and somebody can pen you through a wall because the Marui has better pen than the Vezin. You get slowed down more, and it's got a faster time to kill post 10 meters until, and I mean, I don't, does the Marui even fall below a 4-hit body shot? Like, I don't
I
really
think
think it
on
has
wall penetration, right? That's like one of
a
the
wall pen,
only.
Might be
Yeah.
right, yeah.
but I know that, like, it's like max range or whatever is like 50 meters or something
It's
like that.
insane. It's like
Yeah.
you're not gonna hit
Yeah.
it. Like
So
I don't think
so
anyone's
I
gonna hit it.
I
And
truly think, go
I
ahead,
was gonna say, like, I think something that unironically got buffed that maybe people aren't gonna be noticing as much, but it's gonna be wall bangs, right? I think wall bang and what got nerfed is people evading, because I noticed something in at the higher levels is that people are really good at just surviving, and even if you got the jump on them, even if you got the first couple shots on them, as long as they had like just a couple seconds to kind of start getting out, they can escape and then maybe get away with a couple without dying. But with the hit slow being increased on a variety of guns, I think we might be seeing it now where someone does get that initial jump, it's not as easy, to escape them like before. And that really showcases, I think, in wall bangs, right? Because there have been definitely times where I got a wall bang off with someone, but I thought I was like shooting in a direction, but they were able to run off,
Yeah.
right? But something like Marui, to your point, is going to have strong wall penetration versus other guns,
Mhm.
but also that increased hit slow. Like, imagine if someone has a Marui and they hit you at least once or twice through a wall, like, you might be going down more often than not, compared
Yeah.
to the older days when
And
hit slow wasn't as big of a deal.
something that I was looking at for my numbers too, right? So from what I remember from testing a long time ago is that technically I think the headshot multiplier is like 4x or something like that for the Vezin and the Marie, because or something around there. So if that's the case, right? Again, when you hit that fall off damage and the weapon is only doing 24 versus 25, you might see points where the Vezin's not one hit headshotting anymore, where
Hmm.
something like the
Mhm.
Marui might. So now you might see players that play mid range start to use the Marui because of the one tap potential that the Vezin doesn't, necessarily have. Now the Vezin will still, of course, be good up close. Don't get me wrong, but at longer ranges, again, like on skyscraper where you're looking down an entire hallway, that Marui might be a much better choice at this point.
Yeah, as somebody who's played with both the Vezin and the Marui today, I can safely say that the Vezin is still good. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry
Mm.
about the
Yeah.
Vezin becoming completely unusable. It's not at that point. I think it's balanced now, so it's going to create that exchange. As Yellow had, meticulously pointed out the differences between these two guns. What it really is what we talked about earlier, that dynamic combat. You really have to analyze where you're at, what floor you're on, and your situational awareness. What is the area around you like? Because that's really going to help influence your pick for a rifle. Now you're not in that point where the Vezin is the one size fit all and it can just
Hmm.
do everything. Now you have to think, do I need a gun that supports closer range, or do I need a gun that supports longer range so I can hold angles from further back? And that's really where the Marui is starting to shine in this meta. And I think players who realize that and start to make those decisions early on are going to have the most success in this new meta. Now, we're getting down to the final 10 minutes here before we got to wrap up. So I really quickly want to talk about the reload times, because I think this is one of the more controversial features of the update.
That
Because
was crazy. Like
technically,
it was almost
you
a flat,
could,
like just everything getting hit by the
right,
reload thing.
technically you could consider this a nerf for some of these guns. So we see weapons like the Jesper went from 0.6 seconds to 1. The Spectral from half a second to 1. The Cyclone is to 1. The Taurus is now to 1. So those pistols, the SMGs are now at 1.25. In the case of the RCP, it's now 1.75. The rifles are now at that 1.5 second for every single rifle, and shotguns are down to 1.25 seconds. So what you're seeing here is Triangle Factory's attempt at slowing down your I don't know if it's slowing down the combat or making reloads more intentional. Because I think of a content creator like Jinxie, who plays Rainbow Six Siege, and something that comes to mind is he'll be watching like a clip, and somebody will get a kill in Rainbow Six Siege, and they use like 5 bullets out of like a, you know, however many rounds they have in their magazine, and they go for that immediate reload after they secure a kill, and Jinx will be going like, "Oh, why are you doing that?" You know. But I think we're kind of getting to that same level in Breachers, where it's like you get a kill, but you don't want to like immediately drop your mag and reload afterwards, because if somebody's following behind the player that you just killed, you're going to be stuck because your gun's not going to reload as fast. So you really need to be smarter about when you decide to reload your guns. And, you know, a tactical reload, if you're away from the action and you've used some of your ammo, make sure you reload your gun and get that topped off, so that when you get into an engagement with people, you have a full magazine. And when you don't have the time to reload, you can use the bottom half of your magazine to secure that kill. But this was a big change, because it definitely will feel like combat, or your guns are slower. I don't want to say it makes combat itself slower, because it really doesn't, but it makes it more risky for somebody. You can't just get a kill and immediately reload after with little penalty. You now have to really think about what you're doing.
I think when I saw the reload thing being, I think it's almost a blanket one. I don't think there's one gun not touched by this
No,
reload
everything got hit.
change. I have a situation that comes into mind. I've seen it in a variety of VRML casts, and it's almost this moment where maybe there's like 2 people around cover, but they're relatively close to each other, probably within like 5-10 meters. And we've seen it time and time again. Someone goes for a couple shots, pulls out, reloads immediately, and then within X amount of seconds, they're back to just kind of blind firing. And maybe I can see the developers being like, this is a tactical VR shooter. You shouldn't just be willy-nilly, you know, just popping out, boom, 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 go back, whatever, and then reloading, and then kind of rinse and repeat. I think, to your point, they wanted to slow it down and make everything a lot more intentional. So I think we're not going to be seeing maybe pre-firing or blind firing as often as it used to be, because then people would just blind fire really quickly and then pull in and out, in and out, in and out. And I saw this so many times, and it can be useful for getting that chip damage. But it looks kind of funky, I'm not gonna lie. And I think what's gonna be very interesting is people, how they decide to play this out. How can they bait out someone to reload? Because if you know that they reload, it's gonna be a fair amount of time. And to double up with that, I'm curious to see if we're ever gonna see kind of the pistol draw. You know, I saw it in 1 or 2 like VRML league matches where someone does a pistol draw because they couldn't reload fast enough. And that was back in the day when the reload was lower, right? The reload was still fast, but it was not fast enough for them to be able to re-engage an opponent that was immediately in their face. But imagine both opponents now going in for a reload. It might make sense, honestly, to just go in and blast someone's face with a pistol, because they're still going to be reloading by the time you've already shot them in the face. It makes me think of that COD moment where it's like, hey, sometimes reaching for your pistol is faster than reloading or whatever. But anyways, I know we're coming down to the wire. I do have a cast, you know, in about like 30 minutes. So I'm gonna do some quicker fire rounds. Is there anything you wish that was that made it in these changes? Was there anything that you thought that maybe they missed out on and you kind of wish that they did touch on? I'm kind of curious from you two.
Why don't you go first, Bob?
Oh, thank you. I don't know. This is an interesting. I think I think I'm seeing what I wanted to see. I wanted to
Okay.
see a meta change. I think what we're entering in is now like the brain power meta, which is, you have to think a lot more about what you're doing. It's coming down to the choices that you're making, your understanding of the game, its mechanics, the way these mechanics work, the weapons that you're using. And that's what I wanted to see. I think this has fleshed out Breachers as a whole. It's whether you're in pubs, whether you're in competitive, especially if you're in competitive. I think it's going to be a lot less based on like just going through the motions and leaving everything up to like gun skill, to now working more together as a team. And we'll see that in a little bit, to be fair, with that IV versus Acer game, just how
Mhm.
much that those meta changes impact the competitive scene. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but I think in terms of an update, this is really kind of what I wanted to see. Obviously, it would be cool to
Oh
see like
wow.
a new
Okay.
gun or a new gadget at some point, but I wanted to see the big thing I wanted to see was a big meta change, and I got that, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I it's crazy because I mean, I just kind of agree because I mean, again, this is such a huge change, right? Like
Mm,
every single weapon in the game has been affected. Like when have you ever played another like FPS where they're just like, we're gonna change every single weapon
right.
in this entire game? Like, I think maybe contractors did that in their history at one point. I know they did like a whole like weapon shift or whatnot, but like it's it's crazy to see that, now, they've taken that idea of, let's think about how the eco is about this game and let's see, if we can spice it up a little bit and, promote weapon variety. And I love that. Between that and like the prestige and the new map and everything else, like, I think this is something that is genuinely healthy for breachers as a whole, right? It's everything is more intentional. We talked about reloads and like all the reload times have been nerfed. So now you're gonna like see people being a little bit more intentional if they're trying to just like spam through a wall or if they're spamming a corner or something. Or even if they're stuck in a corner and they want to like just kind of blind fire, like now you have to think about that a little bit because now if you do that and then now can't do anything for a second and a half, or you draw out a pistol. Like I think about the LFT clip at VRMLCon where he's stuck in the
Right.
corner, kills one guy, bam, shoots him with the pistol. And like that's like such a sick clip. And you're gonna see more of that now. So like this is like, as somebody who loves like, the numbers and like the behind the scenes of like how games work and stuff, and like how weapons are balanced in games. I mean, this is like one of the greatest updates I think for breachers, and I'm excited to see how it actually plays out. And I hope that the breachers devs continue to make these like, you know, economic adjustments and these adjustments for all the different guns that they have in their game.
Mhm.
So I'm happy with it. And
That's crazy. Wow, you both have nothing. That is the first. By the way, that is the first time I think I've ever seen, two casters, not just one, but two casters say, you know what, these changes look great. I think for me, I'm being very nitpicky because I agree with
Mhm.
all the sentiment. With the meta changing and some of these slowdown and the game is just gonna the cadence. I think is just gonna feel so different now from round to round. I think the only nitpicky thing is they are making other gun types viable, but I still think that we need to make more guns within those types more viable, right? Because right now, I still don't see too much value in getting something like an RCP. The Kanud and the Huracan, I'm starting to see some kind of changes there, maybe, but I think something like the RCP, maybe it might still be out of place. Cyclone, I can still see maybe needing a very niche use cases. Cadillo and Auril, I don't want to comment on those yet. We have yet to see, those sort of changes come up yet. But I think my only thing is that RCP, really crappy
I
shooter still comes up to
Mhm.
mind. I wouldn't be shocked
you
if it still feels that way. But I do like what Bob had mentioned earlier about how that risky buy is now going to be part of round 2. Instead of getting a hero buy, it's going to be the risk buy, whether it's Cadillo and Alrel. But, something to consider, you can also probably get an Uricon or even a Knut now because it's similar pricing, but you now have that eco advantage. So maybe you can go risky, like all risk, without those rifle buys, or you still do a little bit riskier, but you also get the economy advantage by doing something like a Knut or getting something like the Uricon, which also has their own buffs, right? They're a little bit more viable.
Yeah.
Maybe they're the better choice on certain maps instead of the Cadillo or Alril. So it'll be interesting to see how those come up.
I
But sorry, Yellow, you were saying something?
I was gonna say, yeah. I know we got to close out really soon, but you actually just reminded me. If there is one thing I can change, and I know I'm very biased because again, cannot enjoy it, but I think at this time, again, because you have the Cadillo and Arl down to 2,000, cannot 1,500 instead of it
Oh,
being
interesting.
2,000.
Oh, that's
I
a
don't
hot
know.
It's a hot take.
That's
I don't care.
crazy.
I will die on
18,
this hill.
I don't know. That's
1,500.
crazy, dude. Because you have the RCP at 1,600. And that's what I'm saying. RCP's at a weird spot still. Maybe it just needs a 1,500 adjustment or something like that. Because the
Maybe, but yeah.
Omen, when you look at the Omen at 1,000 versus the RCP
Yeah.
at 1,600, it's still like, I don't know.
Something
It's such
less
a
than
big thing.
2,000, I think. I think 2,000 when you can
Mm.
buy some like lower tier assault rifles for 2,000, like maybe you could.
Honestly, I would say no because with the Knut damage fallout being increased, that one shot
I have to
kill
see how
potential
that
should
plays
be
for you.
more likely, which is kind of what the Cadillo does anyways, right? But you're just gonna be doing it in closer range. So I would challenge and say I think it should be comparable to the
If
Cadillo or
anything,
Alro.
I'd be happy to meet in the middle, 1,700 or 1,750.
Bargaining.
But yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
I think maybe just a shotgun adjustment. And again, it's like shotguns are really hard to balance in general in any video game, but
yeah.
that's beside the point when we have a minute left. But yeah, no, I mean, overall, uh, this is so great to see that they're finally embracing it and saying, let's change the meta and let's just completely shake things up. The timing might be like, we're in playoffs, like maybe this would be cool
Scary.
for the
Yeah, this is like
postseason thing.
this would have been perfect postseason.
But
This would
you
have been
know what?
perfect postseason, right?
I'm
On the
glad they're doing
contrary,
it.
it adds some more drama
It
to the thing,
does.
and it'll make it interesting to see which teams can survive the meta change.
I love it.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
see, it shows cases who can really adjust and learn things on the fly. But anyways, thanks again for checking out another of one of these off the cast episodes. Okay, we're going. Okay, I thought we were signing out already. I'm like, slow down,
He's
chef.
like, nope.
Oh,
Screw
but
you,
yes,
dude.
thanks. Sorry, I did not even warn him. But yeah, thanks again for checking out another off the cast episode. Let us know. We're trying out these different things. I'm trying out these different things. See if let us know if there's any formats you'd like to see us, any topics you'd like to see other casters chiming in on. Maybe even get some players on. I know casters talk all the time, so it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
Yellowhat's definitely a player, but you know what I mean. Like more like league
Certified
only
D1
players.
yappers.
Right. I'm not. I'm definitely not.
Oh,
But
yeah.
definitely,
Okay.
keep your eye out for another stream from us. We're gonna be trying out different things. Let me know if there's any casters you like to see on more often. See y'all in the next cast, y'all.